Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for the movie The Dark Tower. And I've seen worse movies as an adaptation of the work of Stephen King for the Dark Tower series. It comes off more as a fan fiction with making references to everything. They essentially tried to pack 8 books worth of material into 95 minutes. And it doesn't work at all that way. Story-wise, it's whoop, especially with certain editing decisions of how they've spliced certain things going certain places. You're like, where am I now? There's a lot of references to a lot of Dark Tower stuff in it. Like the number 19. The raccoon stuff with commercials because Roland eventually comes to New York and sees talking raccoons and all that. Of course, reference to Oi. We see the wizard's glass and all that kind of stuff with Walter using them to see what's going on, trying to find Jake and all that. There's a lot of stuff in there, but it's so much stuff and there aren't any real characters in this movie. What I mean by that is, since it is 95 minutes, the plot propels everything. There's barely anything to Roland, Walter, or Jake. They are propelled forward because the plot demands it more than characters demand it. And it's just too much stuff is tried to be communicated in this one movie, and that's sad. Because I really was interested to see what Idris Elba and Matthew McConaughey would bring to these characters. Unfortunately, the writers and the directors do not give them really anything to work with. They are just boiled down to a basic kernel for each character. Roland, revenge. Walter, his object of revenge. That's it. Oh, and we get the gunslinger creed pretty much said throughout the whole movie, and you hear it said by these characters, and you hear it repeated, and when you hear that stuff, even just if you're a fan, you really understand that these people who made this movie don't really understand what the creed means, because it's not just something to be said da 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 just to get it forward and just hammered into an audience's brain. On the flip side, if you're not familiar with the Dark Tower series, this thing is a shit show to even try and even begin to understand, because you essentially have to read the books to even really get a grasp of what's going on, and if you don't, you're just I don't. Okay. There's a lot of weird stuff going on, and there's another crappy world where a lot of shit's gone wrong, and it's okay. And this dude wants to destroy everything? Okay. So, the main issue with this movie is the protagonist is not Roland. Roland is not the focus of this movie. Jake Chambers is. He is the hero of this movie. We see that he is having problems. The film begins, we see him having nightmares of Walter and of these psychic people and kids that he has gathered up to try and destroy the Dark Tower, which of course is another problem because their beamquake things aren't really beamquakes because they were trying to destroy the beams that prop up the tower, not shooting beams at it to destroy it, which one of the things that I like in the movie is the representation of the Dark Tower. It's beautiful, it's ominous, it looks like the center of the universe, it looks like it's holding everything up. That's about it. So, he's pretty much, I don't even know how he's doing it, because they also call this psychic power Shine. And they're hooking up these kids and doing something with old tech to force it to harm the Dark Tower. So we see that Jake has become an amalgamation of quite a few characters. Jake Chambers in the main Dark Tower series, one of the psychic people in the main Dark Tower series, brought upon later, and of course another character towards the end of the Dark Tower series that's introduced from one of Stephen King's other novels, who has a supernatural ability with drawing. they're all kind of fused into the Jake Chambers in this movie, and he is having visions, he's writing them down, he's drawing them, he's drawing Walter, he eventually gets to the point where he's drawing Roland the Gunslinger, and seeing the stuff of the fall of Gilead, where Roland's from, and the death of his father, which we see that Walter's magic does not work on Roland, because he can just tell people to stop breathing, and they don't breathe. They really amped up Walter's powers as the Man in Black in this to the point that he's too powerful. And he was never really... He is an antagonist. He is not the primary antagonist. More the Crimson King, which you just see stuff pasted around, but it's never really alluded to. Other than, like, doing the thinnies, kind of, where demons are trying to break through, but that's not even really put in that much, and it's just like, okay, where's the Crimson King? What's this got to do? So, we see Roland's father killed by Walter. Roland tries to shoot at him, but he's able to stop the bullets and all that, and he just walks away. I'm assuming that this was the Battle of Jericho that was being alluded to, but because that was like one of the last stands in Gilead, and that's about what we see. We see Walter like setting some dude on fire, killing his father, and walking away. We see that this is causing problems with Jake and his mother and his stepdad. His stepdad thinks he's a stupid little kid and needs to grow up, so he goes off to school. Kids try and bully him and take his drawings and everything, and he's getting pissed off because, one, if you're having visions at night, you're not getting good at night's sleep, and two, if people are trying to fuck with you, you won't fuck with them back, essentially, if you're in a sleep-deprived, I am not to be fucked with right now kind of state, since he's dealing with the death of his father and all that, and pretty much goes at him. So, of course, he also goes to a therapist, and he's saying, these visions aren't real and all that, while we see an earthquake happen from the beamquake, and he's just kind of getting fed up with it. He's able to have a vision of a house that should lead him to Midworld, and he escapes because his father and mother pretty much called people from a safe place, which is actually henchmen of Walter, to take him to their place to destroy the Dark Tower, and because he's supposedly got the shine as well. And we learn later throughout the movie he's got the strongest shine, and that he can be used to destroy the Dark Tower. So he runs from them, gets to the house, is able to defeat the demon that was trying to eat him as he's trying to get through the portal, gets through, and he's in Midworld. Okay, so he's just walking along and eventually encounters Roland. Roland's like, leave me alone. I'm going to try and kill this one dude. And he's like, look, here's the pictures. Like, do you know who this is? Do you know where he's at? He's like, no, I don't work with him. And freaking out because Roland does have the intensity, but there's like nothing there. You're just trying to kill him. So they walk through talking about like the similarities that are just so glossed over in this. And talking about amusement parks. It's like, hey, I have amusement parks, and like nobody knows. They've been relics for thousands of years. It's like, okay, that's a really quick explanation. And of course, one of the thinny kind of tearing at the edge of the universe has happened. A demon comes in. And, Roland gets injured and poisoned by it, and Jake runs off, but Roland's able to kill it. They get to a village because he needs to find a seer to ascertain the accuracy of Jake's visions. They do. He's like, okay, how do we get there? I guess we're going to have to go to our Keystone Earth, which it's never alluded to why that is called Keystone Earth, but 95 minutes. So, of course, Walter's able to find them, sends his people in Midworld to pretty much destroy the village, and they had stopped the generator to powering the portal back to Keystone Earth. Roland goes through and pretty much annihilates all the people, and we see the people also kind of like showing us more about the gunslinger aspect in this world, but it's really just bare bones glossed before this fighting ensues, and him just going through, he's able to get Jake. They go in, they get him medicine, he tries to learn a little bit about the world, they figure out that they need to get to the Dixie Pig, and of course Jake is captured as they are loading up on guns, and Walter's screwing with them. And Roland is able to get eventually to the Dixie Pig, and we have this giant gunfight. And the biggest problem with this movie is everything was pretty much shown in the trailer. This action scene, the village action scene, and granted, they're pretty nice action scenes with Roland in action with his guns. It's pretty cool seeing the shootout. But we've already seen it pretty much in almost its entirety. So he's doing all the badass things, killing all these people. And we see that Walter has taken Jake and hooked him up to the machine, but he's fighting and not trying to destroy the Dark Tower. And Walter's trying to get that last bit of despair and everything. He just wants to destroy the universe. It's like, okay, whatever. So, of course, we see the climactic battle between Roland and Walter. And, of course, Roland gets screwed up. And, of course, by repeating the gunslinger creed, he is able to do a trick shot and kill Walter and save Jake, bring him back onto this side, and then decide to ask him to be his companion in Midworld. It's like, why? There's nothing in Midworld. What, are you going to go after the Dark Tower now that you killed Walter? Essentially this movie could have been wrapped up completely at the end by just having Roland go back to Midworld, or to stay in Keystone Earth and try to reconnect himself with being a gunslinger. But that would be if character development instead of plot demanded everything. So they go up to Midworld and it's like, alright, whatever. This movie is passable. I'm not going to say it's as bad as Transformers The Last Knight. It has more of a plot than it, not by much, but it's still trying to cram a whole universe's worth of plot into 95 minutes. It's like, you cannot put 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag. And they're going to try and do a TV series after this to kind of explain the fourth book, which kind of gets into how Roland became a gunslinger when he was like 14. And Idris Elba's going to only make cameos. It's like, you try. I respect you for trying to make a sequel kind of thing to The Dark Tower. I don't have a problem with that. I understand what they were trying to accomplish. They just failed at accomplishing it. Because it's like, again, like Transformers. You take all this lore, you put it in a cannon, and you shoot it out. Now granted, these people had more of a mind of how to put it around, but it still doesn't change the fact that it more reads like a fanfic Mad Lib of what's going on, more than actually getting across the themes and the characters and the worlds of the Dark Tower. And it's just like, I wouldn't recommend seeing this if you are a fan of the Dark Tower. If you're a fan of action movies, if you like movies in general, I would not recommend going to pay money for this. If you are bored on a flight and it's showing, cool. It'll waste 95 minutes. Hopefully they got something longer. Yeah, I just wouldn't recommend seeing it. If you need something to pass a kind of short amount of time, sure, but there's better movies out there for you to spend your money on. And it's just disappointing. So, those are my opinions on the movie. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also, like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.